Hey, welcome to the Art Condition podcast. This is the first episode, so I'm super excited to share this with you. Art Condition is going to be a weekly show that deals with the topics of business, community, and the often undiscussed mental health concerns of being a professional artist or even a serious hobbyist. If you enjoy the content, please consider visiting the Patreon link in the show notes to help support the effort. But if that's not an option, please like, subscribe, leave a good review, or share with your friends. And definitely, please go visit the links of our guests on this episode. Thanks for listening and have a great day.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, hi.
I'm pumped. We were talking about this before we went live, and even though I've done this a few times, I find myself like a little bit nervous because we've made it a thing. This is like, it's a podcast. We're fucking... We're real, but more than nervous, I'm super excited because you guys are some of my favorite people, definitely some of my favorite artists, for very good reason that I'm super excited for everybody else to see as well. And I won't suck up too much time. We'll get into a little bit about like kind of what the podcast is about. I want to introduce you guys, and then I'll also sort of like introduce this podcast, but I want you guys to come first. So if you can maybe just give us a quick little chat about who you guys are, a brief background for yourselves to whatever degree you want to, as well as your art, and just kind of bring us up to date real quick. Pinky, you want to go first?
Kirk, do you want to go first? Oh,
You go first. Kirk,
just kidding.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name is Kirk Shannon, and I'm a full-time graphic designer, and I do the streaming on the Twitch kind of in the evenings and on the weekends a little bit. So I went to school for virtual reality of all things in the late 90s after seeing Lawnmower Man, which was a very not great movie, but when you're 17, it was the best movie I'd ever seen. So that kind of got me to go to college instead of going into the woods type of thing, which most of the folks did. And then after I graduated from that, there was obviously no jobs in Atlantic Canada for virtual reality, so I ended up moving back home for a little bit, but then I got a job in graphic design, in e-learning in particular, and that's kind of what I've been doing as my main jam for the last 20 years, so as a graphic designer. So but yeah, as for the art stuff, I'd always done that since high school, and copying heavy metal magazine covers and comic books and all that stuff. So I just kind of dabbled here and there. And then just recently, like the last 10 years, I kind of figured I'd give it a real go and start to learn a little bit more about how to do art properly and all that good stuff. So kind of took off a little bit. And then about 2 years ago, decided to start streaming on Twitch. So the rest is history, as they say.
Vicky?
Okay, sorry guys. I'm Pinkeyepoxy, and I do oil paintings on Twitch for about 3.5 years. Like, I fell into art a bit older and untraditionally, so I don't know, guys. I'm a bit nervous. I'm sorry about this.
Yeah,
But
don't worry about it.
But yeah, like streaming actually has changed my life. I've been about 3.5 years now, and it really has brought me back into kind of like the support and positivity that I sort of felt I missed after school was ending. So I try to do that with people on my stream. Yeah.
So you said that you fell into art somewhat untraditionally and later in life, but you also said that you went to school, which seems like a rather traditional way of getting to it. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Well, so, a lot of people have been like drawing or painting since they were children and all that. But I was living in Egypt at the time, and I was like very lonely and like didn't have a lot of things to do. So I started drawing, and then found an online class that was starting at the Academy of Art University. And I just went for it because I didn't exactly have something else to do, and I fell in love, So that was kind of like, just I woke up one day and then it was like, okay, this is my life now. And then it's been like that ever since. So, yeah.
Excellent. Right on. So since this is the first episode, I want to, and I want to involve an introduction to this podcast a little bit in this series of introductions that we're doing, and kind of discuss like where we're coming from and how that will tie back into like why you guys are our first guests. The podcast has a relatively narrow focus, but with pretty broad implications for as narrow as we think that, our focus will be. And it's kind of to the effect of discussing business and the practice of making art, both as a pro or a serious hobbyist, and how to cultivate a healthy relationship with our art, and how relationships with others are like a really huge part of that. And any podcast, regardless of its content, at its core is about a relationship in itself, between the people that are doing the talking, if they have guests, and then all of the people that are listening. And as a sort of like art-centered podcast, I think that's doubly true for us. And because of this idea of, artists being embedded in a network of support of various kinds, that's what brings us to you guys, and why we thought you guys would be really great candidates for first guests. And because I don't want to put you guys under the microscope, and try and dissect like what makes it tick, what are the secrets. It's foolish for a number of reasons. But you guys both have great collectives of people that surround you and nourish you through live streaming. It's sort of like, that's like kind of like, I think like the main source of your guys is each mutual communities and networks, right? And so I want to know about that. And I think first of all, though, I think it would be good maybe to talk about a little bit about like what live streaming is. Both of you guys stream on a platform called Twitch. For anybody that isn't familiar with that, twitch.tv. And do you guys want to talk a little bit about, Kirk, maybe you can wrap for a little bit on, like what live streaming is, what you do, how that connects with an audience, and what's actually just kind of like involved in that for you.
Yeah, so for streaming for me, it's just I kind of discovered it through video games, which I think probably most people did at one point. I was watching like a YouTube series of a gamer and a group of people that I really liked, and then they had mentioned that they did live shows on this thing called Twitch, which I hadn't really heard of, which is funny because I'd heard of Justin TV, which is what it used to be called. And I just assumed Justin TV was just IRL stuff, so people just streaming their life, walking down the street, talking to people and stuff like that. So they said, oh, they stream their gaming sessions on Twitch, and that was about 2 years ago, so I was kind of late to the party, so to say. But so I popped on that, and then I immediately got diverted into art because I was like, man, video games are cool, but holy crap, there's art here. This is amazing. And being from a slightly smaller community, there's not a whole lot of people to kind of engage with art. And when I seen these other people doing amazing art on stream, I was like, man, they have a community. They're chatting with people. It's kind of neat. You can actually talk about the things that you're interested in art with people live. And I thought, oh, that was really cool. So I tried it there about, I think it was almost 2 years ago at this point. And it's like, you know what? Let's get a webcam set up and stream and just see what happens. And yeah, it took off, and I was really pleased with how it kind of went, especially just with the engaging with community and stuff like that. But yeah, essentially it's just you're streaming what you're doing live to whoever wants to tune in. So it's kind of like live television, but anybody can tune in and watch you. But the addition on TV is that people can chat with you and engage with you in a limited way, but it's still much better than just doing it in your basement by yourself.
So a lot of people are going to, a lot of people are going to be listening to this. It may not have like even just the visual cue of seeing, each of our windows could, give a lot of clues about like what. Pretend you're telling, somebody that just like has no, I was almost going to say a blind person, but that that's not quite right. Somebody that just, this is my first day on the internet, Kirk. What is streaming?
Mhm.
What am I actually looking at when I'm watching your stream? What do I see?
So yeah, you're seeing essentially. So as I said, I'm set up a webcam essentially, or a camera, and it's kind of taking my image and audio and everything, and what you kind of see right now, and then it's kind of sending it to this website called Twitch.tv, and then you're essentially seeing me in my basement or my office, we'll call it, and it's kind of the setup, my drafting table and my tools and stuff like that. So when I stream people, I have like a second camera where people can see kind of like a top-down view of my artwork, and they can see my hands like drawing circles or faces, or essentially doing the art, and then they can see all the tools that I use, like just so that's kind of neat, because then people can actually see the process behind the art. So they're watching it go from whatever stage you choose to start with on stream type of thing, and they get to see it essentially from A to Z, the whole process, and they can engage and ask questions, and yeah, pretty much that.
Yeah. Pinky, what about you? What's your stream like? What do people see when they visit you on the interwebs?
I would say that, well, I mean, I have my easel set up and, whatever it is that I'm working on at that time. Like a lot of what I think that I tend to do is, I guess, like the focus of my stream is like getting better, getting good. Like, what does that mean? What am I like worried about right now? And I have an emphasis. I do a lot of portraits, and this last year maybe still lives and things. But streaming is almost like a fly on the wall in an artist's life. So for my stream, I've got a giant dog who knocks the easel.
Steals the
and-
show.
yeah, like he comes in and he makes an appearance, and my old poodle comes in, and I drop my palettes and I drop my palette knives, and where's my brush, and where's the coffee, and where's my vape. And so I feel like in uh-oh, I lost a
Oh.
moose. Uh-oh. Oh, there he is. Okay. But
Don't
I
panic.
do feel like in some ways it's like what I was lacking before I started streaming was, some companionship in this like really lonely process that like making art can be. And so, yeah, I'd say that's sort of, it's a little bit less polish, my stream, I would say, than a lot of others. But yeah.
That, I mean, yes, but like, I don't know, polished streams and the art streaming community are I don't know, almost mutually exclusive. It seems like there definitely, I think, are streamers that like their overlays are kind of slick or whatever, but I don't know. It's that I don't know that anybody's really like, no one's doing a like a TV show or whatever. Like it's
Absolutely.
nothing too glitzy, which is what's great about it. And I think one of the things that really invites people into participating is it's like the less glitzy, the better almost, like this is just like a human being. And yes, you're like watching them like on a screen, but it's as immediate and tangible as you can get outside of an in-person interaction, I think, and that really lends itself to what you said, Pinky, about, that making that connection and counteracting some of that loneliness that happens as an artist. It's being an artist is an incredibly isolating experience. You know what I mean? It's like there's no office, there's no water cooler for you to all hang around by, and I feel like that kind of goes unrecognized a lot, and having this outlet, having this ability to make connections like that is what drew me into Twitch. I think it's what drew most people in, and it's invaluable. It can't be understated enough. And so I would like to talk about that a bit more, and in particular this word community, I kind of use that as like a catch-all term to encompass a lot of things, almost to the point where like it means so many things it can sort of start to lose its meaning. But I think that it boils down to life support. Like, not to be too like, melodramatic about it, but I really think that that's like at the root of it. Our community is our life support. But I would want to hear maybe you guys talk about it, what it means to you. Like, what does your community mean to you? And what does the idea of community mean to you guys, Kirk?
Yeah, I mean, again, the with the melodrama, I mean, the community is everything in my opinion. I mean, if I didn't really care like about the community, then why would I stream, right? So obviously the streaming is the first most important thing is the community in a way, and it's you just kind of cultivate that organically through while you stream type of thing. And yeah, community is really, especially the art community. Like I find it so fascinating when you compare it to like gaming communities and stuff like that. It just seems to be almost, I wouldn't say polar opposite, but it's just a different dynamic, let's say. Everybody tends to be so supportive, and there's people coming in of all skill ranges coming and asking questions, and that's very cool. I really enjoy that idea of somebody coming in and say like, how do you draw hands, or how do you do this, or how long have you been drawing, and stuff like that. So I think that's really neat. As you said, it kind of alleviates some of that loneliness, and hopefully it's a two-way street with the people who come into the chat as well, and they have an outlet to kind of ask questions or share their art with the rest of the community. So it's almost like just a nifty interconnected network of artists sharing art with each other and experiences, whereas they may not be able to do so otherwise. So yeah, the community, I think, is amazing.
Yeah, what about you, Pinky? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, before I started streaming, I was like working by myself every day, in a garage, and like sort of like time stopped existing in a way. Like you could work on a painting for half a year and not make any real progress on it or anything like that. And this was like after school, where I had come to sort of develop like a need to have like other people around, and just that, like, not even a competition, but just like this push of like always wanting people around you to be like, well, did you think about this? Or like, leave that painting, my god, like it's dead, anything like that. And so when I found Twitch, it was like that was what I had missed about school, having people around, having different ideas and thoughts. And have you thought about cold wax medium, or have you tried this particular thing? And then it was like, like all these people coming together, having all these ideas, and like us growing and changing in a bunch of different ways. And then like one other thought on that was like, being by myself in my garage, and you go on like ArtStation or any sort of like social media, and you see all these paintings by these people, and you kind of imagine them as like one person who's just like incredibly good and like magical. And so I think that the benefit of Twitch and community and everything like that is you see that these are real people that struggle for 18 hours a day and suffer, and they beat themselves up, and they have imposter syndrome, and they have all these things, and it's fine, and that's safe, and it's normal. And that's what my community gives to me, and I give back, and I hope, so I would say they're my friends.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
grateful.
Yeah, I think that we would all agree with that. And again, I kind of want to linger on that, and because it should be emphasized, that because I think that there's even in the world of oh god, I'm showing my old man status. What's the app where you swipe left and Tinder? And like all of these like instant gratification social media platforms, and like dating online is like totally acceptable now. Like I remember when it was what, you met somebody on MySpace? That's, you fucking weirdo. And now that's just happening, right? And but even still, like I think that there's still this preconception maybe about like the internet, and it's not really a real place, and that human connections aren't possible, or they're not real, and I people think well, I don't want to speak for most people, but it seems like maybe my impression is that when people think about social media or social interactions online, they immediately go to Twitter and Facebook, and they think about all of the terrible interactions that they're having, and just like the shit posting and the dumpster fires, and just how bad it can get. And so it's, I think, like really worth emphasizing and re-emphasizing that something like Twitch has like so much great benefit in that, like, if I have met any assholes yet, they've done a really good job of keeping it under control for the sake of, having to actually like be in front of other people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It puts that human scale back into the internet, where you're not just like a name scrolling through a feed. It's like, oh, here's a face. You know what I mean? And anyway, so on that, like, were there any conscious decisions that you guys made in seeking out a network of support and seeking out a community? And were there any things in particular that you guys did to attract viewers or keep them around or keep them engaged? Pinky?
You want to go, Pinky?
I'd like to hear from Pinky first, because you have the Friday night draw, and that's an awesome thing that I would love for you to even promote a little bit. But aside from that,
well, I guess when I first started streaming, I did it like merely as a way to just, break out of what I was doing, which was like not sharing my art with anyone. And like the first couple weeks, I didn't even really realize that there was like a chat function or anything like that. So, but as my stream sort of developed, it was just literally like I would make friends with people, and then they would stay, and then they would make friends with people and stay, and that's how it sort of all came about. But Friday drawing streams started from like maybe a place of crankiness, if we're honest, like because I felt like for me, like one of the hard parts about streaming is like, you have to make art on stream, and like not everything is a success, and a lot of times it's a huge catastrophe for me. And so, and then it's like quite easy sometimes for people to come in and be like, well, that's a hot dumpster fire. So I was like, well, do it better. Okay, like let's all try to do it better together, and that's sort of how they were born. But they have become a marvelous thing where people can all come together, and like just amazing to see this growth of everyone who participates. And they've been going on for over 2 years now, and it's just like I am constantly just shocked by the growth of my friends, So
If I can jump in here, Pinky also does a great job of keeping track of who in her community is an artist and remembering to shout them out when they're coming in the chat, saying that, go to follow them, even if they're like not Mikey mega level, right? But if they're like only have a few dozen followers on the channel, she'll shout them out, like even if they're about to start streaming, right? She's super encouraging of everybody to participate in the community, both art-wise and as a friend. So she'll say, oh, hi, right, to everybody that she knows that comes into chat. So that recognition, I think, is one thing that keeps her community coming back.
Thank you, Moose. Thank you.
Yeah, those Friday night draw sessions, as much as I would love to hype them up and will hype them up, I think of full disclosure, I've only been able to participate in like one. But I love them from afar. I'm very often lurking, even if I'm not able to like draw along with everybody. I'm often lurking, and like you said, like watching people grow in that. There's one artist in particular that I can think of, Smee, who, like I feel like as like over the course of your Friday night draws, like went from pretty baseline fundamentals to Wowsville, like, oh my god, like this guy is gallery level now, and it's like this, I feel like it's this testament to, yes, it's a crazy amount of work that goes into it, because that dude has just been drawing nonstop for like 2 years, but here it is, the proof is in the pudding. The hard work and the dedication gets you there. And that's one of like the real like golden moments of those kinds of things. And Kurt, to bring those questions around to you, I would heap praise on your stream as well, because you're so generous with your time, and taking way back when I first started watching your stream, there was a lot of like taking the time to like discuss fundamentals and what's important, and like what are fundamentals, how to study them, all of that. So you want to talk a little bit about this kind of the same series of questions to you?
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing I try to do is like when people ask, and I brought it up earlier, like when people ask like how do you draw hands, is even though sometimes my mind is like I just went over this like maybe 10 minutes ago, I'll always try to pull out a scrap piece of paper and then do it again, like show this is how you kind of block out a hand and stuff like that, because I think it's really important to help people along in their journeys, and I think in almost in a weird selfish way, it ends up helping me in my journey too, like people coming in. And I guess one thing I'd definitely say about streaming is that it's a interesting way to help hold yourself accountable to continuously to output art, if anything. So like, especially if you got a set schedule and stuff like that. So, and hopefully it's the same for the people who come in as well. And yeah, I do like to go over fundamentals and stuff like that. It's pretty, I've been kind of slack on it lately, but I think we all fall into those dips and peaks type of thing when we're doing the foundations and stuff like that. But I think we could probably all agree that I think that's the journey we will do until we shuffle off of this mortal coil, as they say, and always come back to doing fundamentals every once in a while. So yeah, and I think it's really important to as I said, like when people have questions, like just to help them out as best as you can, and spend the time. It's funny because some people will say like, oh, I hate to bother you, or I hate to ask you a question, or don't worry about it. And I'm like, well, if I was worried about it, I probably wouldn't be streaming, right? Like this is part of why I'm streaming, so I can engage with people, even if it's just to hear a little bit about their day, or just for them to ask. But like, oh, what do you think of Stedler ink pens, or what do you think of these types of pens? And I can give my opinion. It's like, hey, I like these ones, I've never really used these ones, and so on and so forth. And then I can ask them, like, well, so what do you think about these ones? Because I have never used like Copic fine liners. What are they? And tell me about that. So yeah, I think that's really a really fun part about the community and streaming. It's just like again, like going back to sharing artwork, and people like, oh, I've been working on this cool piece, can I show it? And I'm like, yeah, totally, I want to see it, and share it on stream so everybody else can see it too. So it makes everyone feel welcome and kind of part of the crew, so to say.
You also have the Book of Gratitude whenever somebody raids or hosts you. How did that come about?
The Book of Shame.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that.
Oh, it's flipped. But yeah, there's an artist called Susuri the Artist. She's from Finland, and she had a book or like almost like a bullet journal type of thing, and she would write down various thank yous and stuff like that, and put stickers and stuff. And I was like, I'd like to do that too, like take a little bit of time to show people the appreciation, like, thank you for the dono or the subscription or the raids, especially type of thing. Like sharing communities back and forth is I think almost more important than the rest of it in a way. But yeah, taking a little bit of time. I mean, time is important to everybody. So I think taking, as I said, a little bit of your time to, show some gratitude in whatever way you can. I mean, it's a weird kind of scuffed way of doing it, because I couldn't be as creative as Susuri and stuff like that. So I just used my extremely terrible handwriting and turned it into a little fun game and put little symbols and make it look like a spell book of sorts. So yeah, it's kind of yeah, it's been an interesting thing, and I think people are like it too, because they can see that you're writing their name down, you're giving them some time, which is, I think everybody appreciates just a little bit of time once in a while. So
yeah, it's interesting what you just said, about how, well, I couldn't be as creative as Usuri, and it's sort of our knee-jerk reaction. Artists are particularly susceptible to this, to kind of like downplay our own potential for creativity, or even more so, we really good at grossly underestimating the appreciation that other people have for our creativity. Because I look at that, the little book of shame that you have, with great wonder. I think that is like one of the unsung treasures of Twitch. And when you said like it's like a little spell book, it's super true. And yes, you have like, we all have sloppy handwriting, maybe. But that just like adds to this like character of it, because like the writing is this like weird ancient runic script, and there's like all of these esoteric symbols that you're putting in there, and you're talking to people as you're writing in this book, which is like these little incantations that you're pouring into it. It's like someone 1,000 years from now is going to dig that book up and infer a whole bunch of things about the time that we lived in for the better, I think. And that you also mentioned something about accountability, and I think that's interesting or important to note as well. And in that, when there is that isolation as an artist, it can be hard to get the motivation to like get up and go and start going. And knowing that there are people there that are excited to see you and to see the work that you're doing, and you're excited to see them, because I also don't want to like give this like impression of like, oh, there are fans and like my fans are waiting. It's the reciprocity. It's a mutual thing. Like going to hang out with friends is like, I don't have to describe that, but I kind of feel like within this context, it's kind of like worth noting that it is sort of like that, like I'm excited to go see my friends. And that helps us like get the motivation going and get the drive going. And it is also that accountability of like, all right, it's like, I'm going to get some work done, and there can be this like struggle of like, well, chat can be distracting, and maybe I'm not getting as much done as I could be if I wasn't reading chat or whatever. But then you think immediately like, well, I'm not looking at Twitter, I'm not looking at Facebook, and I'm engaging in this like meaningful dialogue with people. And then I'm also working on the art to keep that going. So, they want to see that. And so it's like all of these things that I just like kind of like push you up and up and up. And maybe the actual amount of lines or paints that you put down decreases by some percentage, but the trade-off is like so much more valuable in like what it has to offer.
So if I could jump in,
please do.
Both Kirk and Pinky work traditionally. Kirk, I believe your day job is not traditional.
correct.
Is that correct?
Yep.
And Pinky, your day job is, well, all your life is traditional, but a lot of times you do work off stream instead of the work you actually need to focus on stream. So if you guys want to jump into that a little bit, Pinky first, I guess.
Oh, wait, okay. Like, I'll admit that I sort of misunderstood the question. Do you mean like, do I do other artwork off of, like, while not streaming?
Right. So you do little small things that you don't have to focus on so much. So it doesn't matter if they're perfect.
Yeah.
On
so
stream.
I I tend to like to do like studies or the starts of paintings is another thing I like to do. And then when I'm off stream, that's when I tend to turn off Discord, like turn off more of the distraction, and then get like more work done, I guess. Yeah, if that counts, maybe. But
Yeah, and for me, like if I work on, sometimes I'll do commissions on stream, but generally what I'll do is if it's for commission or like a paid piece of work, I do the beginning stages digitally offline because I have to focus. That the beginning stages of figuring out the anatomy, the pose, the composition, stuff like that. I'm accidentally muted myself. Is like very brain taxing.
Yeah.
So I have to kind of do that off stream. And if I'm doing like, I can do it while engaging with chat, but it just makes it a forever process for me because I'm just like erasing and not really focusing. So there's certain aspects to that type of my traditional artwork that I do offline, just especially if it's for a commission. I really want to nail like the composition. It's just much easier to kind of get that kind of set up. And then generally what I do is I'll print it out. And then when I start streaming it is at the place where I'm lightboxing the digital sketch at that point. And then the rest of it's kind of just going through the paces of putting a couple 40,000 lines down on paper. So
yeah, that was.
So that's all. Just to say that it's not a zero. It's not binary. You don't have to do all of your work on stream or all of your work off stream. If there's some part of the process that's extra intense for you, you don't have to stream it. And then there was Sarah Finnegan, another artist that used to stream on Twitch. Hope she does again soon. She had the idea to only do very small paintings that she didn't have to sell for anything, didn't have to work on for any intended purpose, just like doodles for as far as paintings go. So she did those on stream, where if she didn't have to concentrate on it, then the mistakes didn't matter. So where I was going to go with this was I don't know.
I think you got there. I think you went.
Yeah.
And that's cool, man. I was gonna mention something that Pinky said, where you were saying that you like to do like your sketching and your preliminary work on stream. I mean,
yes.
I've seen I think enough of your streams to see like the beginnings of the paintings and stuff, but I don't know if I've ever come to think of it been sure of like, to what degree, any given painting that you start on stream is like, okay, this is going to be a serious project. Like this is a commission, or this is something that I have to like really like be invested in. Or is it all of the above? You're comfortable doing your sketching and preliminary work?
I guess, well, part of it is, I guess, like, you guys talk a bit about preliminary work, and like I will, before stream, if I'm going to do like a from life, still life or something like that, I'll sit down and I'll think about it a little bit and like hold my hands out and be like, okay, like this is where, this is going to start and this is where it's going to end. But typically I like to like live a bit in the moment and be like, oh, okay, like let's see what happens. And that's why sometimes it's a failure. But yeah, I guess, yeah.
Bob Ross
Speaking
would
of
scold
failures-
you for using the word failure.
Speaking of happy accidents, what have
Thank
you
you.
learned from your time on Twitch that you would advise to people who want to start streaming? Any mistakes that they could learn from that you made? Kirk, anything come to mind?
I was 100% since the beginning. I'm generally like it's hard to think back so long ago. Like I'm a pretty shy person when it comes to like real scenarios type of thing, and Twitch has been an interesting thing for me, even though like you're not really looking at like a group of people in front of you. So I think just being a little bit, and I wouldn't even consider it a mistake. It's just more like something to think about, I guess, a little bit more, is just being responsive to people as they're chatting and stuff like that. Because a person could come in and say hi, and if you're head down and then you look up and you seen they posted a message like 10 minutes ago, and they're probably long gone by that point, right? So again, that's easier said than done sometimes too. It's hard. Artists can get kind of tunnel visioned into their work, and that's totally their process. But that would just be one thing. But yeah, you might have to give me a minute to think of any like truly bad mistakes or that I've done and tried to improve upon.
Vicky?
Well, I would say, like, if I could talk to myself starting stream all over again, like, I would say that, like, it's okay to, like, have to turn it off sometimes, you know? It's okay to turn off Discord. It's okay not to be, like, emotionally available, like, every moment of every day, you know, and to be able to set, like, healthy boundaries for yourself, because I would say the thing about streaming and then being an artist and then living your life is like the lines get blurred a bit, and but it's okay to step back and say, like, no, I need a little bit of time to, you know, just be by myself. And that's okay. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree 100%.
Yeah, Pinky, you and I have talked a little bit off the podcast before about how difficult that can be to keep up with the amount of input that you can get, you know, and the amount of people that are contributing to a Discord or to a community. Some people may not know what Discord is either, so just real quick, it's not directly connected to Twitch, though you can connect the two platforms. And Discord is, the short answer is basically it's this sort of streamlined forum platform. And I'd say most, if not every art streamer that I know has a Discord community. And it's kind of like where people that are part of the stream and engage in the stream can go to and kind of continue the interactions off stream, outside of the stream. And they can become pretty high-paced places. And it's really interesting depending on the, you know, the size of the streamer, as far as like the numbers of people that may watch the stream, how self-sufficient it can be. You know, some of the like larger streamers may never have to, or very rarely even like show their face on their Discord, and it's just like a community that gets this perpetual motion machine thing going on. You know, and then there's like a spectrum from that down to, you know, pretty small numbered streamers that, you know, maybe it takes like a little bit more input and energy to keep that going. But then that like idea of like, oh, I need to put energy in to keep it going can be sort of self-defeating, you know, or it's like this like sense of obligation or something, you know, and you and I talked very briefly about this like sense of shame that can come with that, you know, that's like, oh, I'm letting people down and I've I've failed, you know, and it can be a little weird where that comes in, especially after, you know, like all of the talking that I've been doing about like, oh, it's great, everything's great, but let's also like remember that there can be some like pitfalls that we can slide into. Some people are like they step into it very easily. It doesn't take like a lot of brain effort. Maybe they're just like, they're already like very gregarious and outgoing and interactive, and you know, so it's not always like this, you know, but I think like maybe a lot of people have that sense of shame. So it's, yeah, just this big ramble is basically all to underscore what you just said, that like it's okay to step away, do what you need to do to make it feel comfortable for you. And as much as I love streaming, as much as I love everything about it, I often take breaks and have to step away and just kind of like learning to accept like what that means, as far as like, what will the community think? What will my friends think? You know, it's like, well, the ones that know, and they're going to be cool with it. You know what I mean? Like, it's fine. So, yeah.
My suggestion is to join all the Discords, It lets you join up to 100 of them. And then mute most of them, except for the ones that you absolutely want to get the notifications from, your close friends or your own server, obviously. And you can even shut down certain channels that are always going active. Like if you're like, I don't feel like listening to or getting an alert every time somebody posts a meme, so you can mute the meme channel. That way, when somebody goes to the who's going live, you can check that out and go, "Oh, my friend just went live."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a that is good advice to people that come in as a viewer. Like if you're not a streamer, but you watch streams and then you watch or you join Discords or whatever. I've heard that feedback as well. That people that are just part of a lot of. We were talking about that before this stream, and like how many Discords we've joined. And just muting all of them and having that control of like, okay, where am I going to go? What am I going to look at? I think is pretty important. Because like people have expressed to me the stress that they have about like not keeping up enough with like all of the Discords that they're just like part of, not even being a streamer. It's like, it's overwhelming. But I in the chat, INV made a good point or observation. He said, "I wonder if it is partially a difference between introverts and extroverts." I think that's definitely a part of it. Speaking for myself, I'm very much an introverted extrovert or extroverted introvert. One of those, where I like the engagement and I have like these cravings for engagement. But when I like want to recharge, like I have to be by myself. I have to. It's like a very like isolated thing. Is that what do you guys feel as far as like how do you guys like to sort of like rebuild the energy for, mental power?
Yeah, I would say I'm definitely more on the introverted side of things. So recharging offline, so to say, by myself type of things, the best way to kind of regain that energy and to put the Twitch side into it too, and to talk about like this guilt/shame sometimes. Like you want to go as a streamer, go visit all the other art streamers channels and go in and engage and that type of thing. But for me personally, it's like after you're kind of done streaming, you need that downtime, which is that kind of recharge your energy. So you get that little kind of in the middle area where you're like, oh, I want to jump into so-and-so's chat and start engaging and type of thing. But then you're like, well, I actually need the recharge. So self-care, but then your mind battles between those two types of things. But yeah, no, definitely for me, it's the introverted side of things where you just, you're especially for me, like being outgoing, if we will, on stream and stuff like that. And then once I'm done, I'm just like, kick the power button on the power bar, just close everything down, get out of here type of thing for me. So
Exact same. I sort of feel like every streamer has like a amount of hours that they can stream in them, and then after that, like they're done. So for me, it's like 5-6 hours, and then that's it. Like no matter what, it's over, and I need to go outside and be with the dogs, and and I intend to come back to the stream that we've hosted, but like usually I just can't, like
That's very common. Raiding and running is almost universal, where people will stream until they absolutely cannot anymore, and then they will raid or host somebody and say, "Hey, look at what I did. Okay, thanks. Gotta run. Bye." And that's totally fine.
The new term that I recently heard that I would like to have implemented is host and ghost. I think that's what we're officially calling it from now on. But earlier in the chat too, thank you, Don Lee, for pointing it out. That Visual Nomad had a good question. How do you handle being a part of other streamer communities and having your own as well? We kind of just touched on that a little bit, but do either of you guys want to talk a little bit about that? Go, Pinky,
Me?
go.
Okay. Sorry. Like I would say as long as I'm on my stream, I can be quite, gregarious and everything like that. And as soon as, because it's like this one little world, but I would say, like, I'm a lurker everywhere I go. Like, my favorite streamers, I lurk. I like lurk their discords. I like to know what's going on, but I do have a bit of a hard time feeling like I would have anything of note, to say or anything like that, even though, these are my friends and all that. So, yeah.
I just want to put in there, like, for Pinky or anybody else, just saying hi and I have to lurk is more than enough. Just let people know that you're there for them. You don't have to have the entire conversation. Just make your presence known, and so they can feel it.
Yeah, I like that. Okay.
It's cool because one part of my brain knows that, and then the other part of my brain is like,
Yeah.
oh.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's being part of other art streamers communities. Yeah, it's very cool. I like to, again, I'm very the same as Pinky there. Like I just kind of lurk more so, but lurking in like Discords too, like checking out all the awesome art. Because I'm a glutton for art. Like just blast my eyes with all the cool art I can see. So I'll pop into like where people share their artworks and just kind of scroll through, and it's just like, oh man, this is so cool. But yeah, being part of other artists, like streams and stuff, it is cool when I have the energy and the kind of the mental space for it type of thing to pop in and engage for a little bit, especially if I'm just kind of clicking through and I'm like, holy crap, like that is freaking cool. And you just pop in and just like, even if it's just like, hi, just stopping in real quick, but this is looking amazing, like holy crow, or like whatever type of thing. And sometimes as much as as I said, the mental space that I have at that particular time. And then other times I'll spend like, it doesn't sound like a lot, I'm sure, like when compared to like maybe if you're about like 20 minutes or so, and just kind of have a short little discussion, say, hey, how's it going, what you do on the weekend type of thing. But then yeah, it's usually quickly to lurk. And then as an artist, you're kind of always probably looking at other things too, like or doing your own artwork on it while another stream or two is up type of thing. So that's kind of like how I like to approach it as well.
It's totally okay for you to have like no social energy after a stream or after you've been hanging out in somebody else's stream. It takes, even as a viewer, right? It takes energy to contribute to a stream. So sometimes you can just go there and watch and talk to them about it later, which is totally fine.
Yeah. This sort of speaks to a line of questions that I was thinking of, in terms of talking to people about what Twitch is, like in the event that it comes up in my life, and maybe your guys as well. And people have either not heard of it, or if they have, they're like, they say something like, "Oh, I thought that was for video games," and then they find out that artists are doing art as well. They're like, "Oh, well, that's interesting," but there's also this cognitive dissonance of like, well, how do you watch somebody do art on a stream? Like video games, like that's almost intuitive. Like you can imagine, like you're literally watching somebody play a video game. But like, how do I interact? How do I engage with somebody making art? So if somebody is new to this idea, they're just like even hearing about it and they're like, "Oh, that sounds really interesting," but this is weird, but then they want to go and they check out a stream and become part of a community. What are some ways, or what are some things that people can think about in supporting an artist, a streaming artist, aside from just buying their stuff? And that's great too, but just like being part of that community and kind of stepping into that.
I really dig it when like other members of the community talk to each other in the chat. I think that's always really cool, because then it really feels like it's not just like you're coming in, you're just talking at the streamer and then nobody else type of thing, because then it seems like almost like a one-way street type of thing. So it's always cool when somebody comes into the chat and they're, they may say hi to you, of course, the streamer, but then they start chatting with somebody, or somebody shares a piece of artwork and everybody's commenting on it while you're still sitting there scribbling away at the worst face you've ever drawn type of thing. And it's always cool, and they just kind of interact amongst themselves, which is like pretty amazing. I think so. That's a really cool way. At least when I see that, I'm like, that just makes me feel like, oh, cool. We're all doing the thing. It's pretty cool, and we're chatting with each other and stuff like that. So I think that's a great way. I know it's kind of like they're not necessarily supporting the streamer, but I think it's just supporting building a cool community within that streamer's kind of globe of influence, if you will, type of thing.
Yeah.
But again, and another thing is like most of these viewers, they kind of cross pollinate through other streamers too. So I think that's always really, really neat too. Like you had mentioned Don Lee, and it's like I've seen him in so many chats and stuff like that, and it's so cool. So I that type of thing too, like just seeing names you recognize, I think is really neat way to kind of build the community as a whole, I guess.
So for me, I would say like the thing I love most about like the thing that helps me out as a streamer just selfishly is when people are compassionate and understanding with each other. This is like my best life when that happens, and my community is amazing. Like I love them for this. But as far as what they do to support each other, I absolutely love that my stream will like share resources. They will find this link to this video that talks about this art process or this or that or the other thing. And in that way it's like it's not, we're like not alone in this art journey. It's like we've got people out there finding the best things that they can and sharing it with each other, and I love that. So Don Lee is famous. Yeah, sorry.
Shout out Don Lee, the infamous viewer. Yeah, that's I love that idea of interacting with other people. It's not just about me, or and maybe I don't want, I can speak for you guys as well, that it's like you're loath to hog the entire, yes, I'm the one on screen, but this is a group effort, and for me, what I love is sometimes people are like a little bit shy about posting their artwork or sharing their Instagrams or whatever, and and some streamers don't want people just like coming in and spamming their art stations and Instagrams, and understandably so. But it's also really great, when I do find out that someone that's watching is an artist, I'm really excited, regardless of skill level or content or anything like that. Like, yeah, show it to me. Like, let me see it. Let's talk about it, or, whatever. Like, that's great. And then, like you said, sharing resources and getting involved with other people's art. I hear like over and over again, I hear that people are shy about sharing their artwork. And I think what is lacking in their life, my intuition and some of a relatively educated guess, is that it's a lot of like a big lack of positive reinforcement, definitely from themselves and from peers, like other people in their lives, and they don't really have a lot of people around them that are like really encouraging and supportive, and that's, I think, like one of the best things that you can do if you come into a scenario like this, is like, yeah, get into what other people are doing, and it's so refreshing when if Instagram and Twitter are previously maybe like your mainstays for consumption of social interaction when it comes to art, like come on over to Twitch. I feel like a Twitch zealot sometimes, and I've often said before that there's a lot that we can complain about when it comes to Twitch. But at the same time, I always feel compelled to be like, you should be streaming. Like, and I know it's not for everybody, it's not like, I'm sure you don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. But man, if there's like any possibility that you do, yeah, come on in and like, let's see it. And let's all do this together.
I remember it was another show, it might have even been One Fantastic Week, that mentioned that Twitch was one of the best places to get true fans, or people that are very consistent followers of you and actually really want your stuff, as opposed to Instagram, which you'll get tens of thousands of follows, maybe, but they might like your work and click the heart button, but they won't ever contribute to you in a meaningful way. So Twitch is a good way to find your core community of people that like.
Someone was listening.
His knowledge was too awesome.
Yeah. Just kidding, NSA. While Moose is coming back. Oh, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
I'm not sure why this keeps happening.
Well, continue that train of thought.
I was just gonna say, like, if you're considering building a core community, do it on Twitch, and you can always get a bunch of people to join your mailing list that way, so that you can blast out all the mildly followers in addition to your core followers.
Yeah, don't worry, Pinky and Kirk. We'll get back to you guys. We'll get off this fucking Twitch train in a second. But to bring it back to you guys, maybe you guys can comment on this this idea of followers and like the numbers, and like how that can become kind of a preoccupation. And what I'd be interested to hear from you guys is, is that something that you've wrestled with in the past? Like, what are my numbers? Are they high enough? Are they too high? Is it, like, how can I get more? Oh, this is, how do you guys, what's your frame of mind on that idea of like the followers and the viewers and stuff? Kirk?
In Twitch in particular, I guess, and this would be, I guess, to go back to one of the previous questions, one of my biggest suggestions for people who are streaming would be to turn off your viewer count, because I don't look at viewer count. I did for the first little while, and then you can't help it. It's just human psychology. You get fixated on a number, and you're like, oh, I got 13 people watching. Is that good? Is that bad? And then you start thinking, what can I do to get more? And then I think that kind of sends you down a path of maybe going a little too gimmicky or trying to do things that you normally just don't enjoy, but just so you can get more numbers. So definitely, like, I would suggest, it's not for everybody, but yeah, turn off your viewer count so you don't see how many viewers you got. That way you're kind of just the same person always, or at least that's the theory behind it, type of thing. And then you kind of stay your course. You do what you enjoy doing, and you're not trying to be like, oh man, I only had 20 today and I really want, what can I do next time? Geez, maybe I should dance or do something weird so I can get more. And again, that's an extreme example, especially for us artists, I think. But viewer count. It's nice, of course. As I said, it's psychology. You can't help but see the numbers at some point if you're going through your dashboard or something like that. But definitely, as I said, easier said than done. Try not to focus on it. Turn the viewer count off, and then hopefully, if you're just doing what you enjoy, the people see that you're enjoying what you're doing. You'll just organically grow at whatever pace it might be. It may be super fast, maybe super slow, but if you just stick with it, it will grow.
Yeah, same. I found myself starting to stress out about numbers at one point. And if you're, anyone here who's streaming and doesn't know, if you click on your viewer numbers in your creator dashboard, it will disappear. And then you never have to think about it again. And it's the best. So I'm a big believer in that, because, I feel like for a stream to be sustainable at all, like, you can't constantly be somebody else. You have to be doing what you want to be doing. And if people don't like it, then, like, they can go watch something else. And that is something that you should be okay with,
So metrics are something that in general will make you unhappy, no matter what they are.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's likes on Facebook or upvotes on Reddit or whatever. After you've reached a certain number, that becomes the baseline, and anything below that is a disappointment. Mm-hmm. So if you're getting 5,000 likes on Instagram, that's now the bottom, right? And you're like, oh, I didn't get 40,000 that time.
Yeah.
And it's just a gateway to unhappiness. So don't worry about the numbers.
I heard it.
And I think especially on Twitch, like I think it's maybe even more so true on Instagram. It's like numbers don't equate to a good, like, tangible relationship with your community. And then also, if you want to think of it monetarily, it doesn't equal more money. If you got 100,000 people following you on Instagram, doesn't mean you're making bank, honestly. Like it's just one of those kind of fallacies I think some folks have. Now I'm sure there's some people who have like 100,000 followers that are making a lot of money, but there's probably a handful or more that have the same number, but they're not. So yeah, it's just one of those things. And again, I think the more important part of obviously is just a good relationship with your followers and your community. Yeah, followers kind of a weird. It's like the fan term. It's more
Right,
just a
right.
relationship with your peers, I think is the way I
Yeah.
like to think about it. So
Yeah, peers is a good word. I like that word. I think followers becomes the sort of like the default nomenclature, just because it's like that's literally the word that you see everywhere. Like follower. I
I think we'll get more into the follower stuff and Instagram in detail when Dave Cave joins us, because he has 100,000 followers on his Twitter. On his Instagram, but on his Twitch page, it's like significantly less. So we can get to that later. But
we don't have to dwell, certainly not on Instagram, and I wouldn't dwell too much more on the numbers, other than just to say, like, I heard this great thing one time that like the numbers aren't your worth. The amount, like, that's not what defines your value as an artist. And rare is the art streamer that's going to reach Dave Greco numbers or whatever, and it's impossible to beat a fucking dead dude. So stop worrying about it, because Bob Ross is the most watched art streamer in the creative channel. So just, sometimes I wonder if they even do that on purpose, just to like help people stop worrying about it. Cause it's like, all right, well, that's, never mind. Like, I'll just enjoy. And some of the best times that I've ever had on a stream has been with relatively few people in my chat. So after we just spent a lot of time talking about like, well, the numbers don't matter. What has the effect been for streaming on your career or your art life, like more, specifically, in terms of the positive influences that it's had on your art journey, so to speak? Kirk likes to go first.
Yes.
sure. It's interesting for me. So I'm 40 years old and I started streaming when I was 38, I guess. So, and it makes it sometimes when I think about it, it makes no sense. But I never sold a piece of artwork ever until I started doing Twitch. So because it was more like a hobby type of thing, and obviously like my main day job is doing the other stuff, but I've always kind of drawn the same things. So Twitch has definitely helped me in terms of just my self-confidence, like beyond anything, because before I never had a store. I drew artwork. I have like a chest here that's just full of hundreds and hundreds of drawings that I just don't show people, type of thing, like my wife and maybe some close friends, but that was kind of it. So Twitch was a really cool way, both monetarily in a small way, but and also just like self-confidence was huge, because people are like, man, your work is really cool, you should share it more often. Why, like almost like why did you never show anybody this type of thing before? So that's definitely been like the biggest thing for me. And then people convinced me, oh, you should set up a store so people can buy your artwork. And I'm like, really? Like, why type of thing? Because, curse of the artist, just always kind of putting yourself down a little bit type of thing. And then again, after that was start to get a few commissions of people like, oh man, I want an inky skull type of thing. And I'm like, really? So it's always like the really. But now I'm almost to the point where I'm like, okay, cool type of thing. So yeah, in that regard, it's definitely been really amazing for me anyway. So
Yeah, absolutely. Like, Twitch changed my life entirely. I was a barista when I started streaming, and worked a lot of hours, came home and worked some more. And through streaming, I eventually like just transitioned into, this is what I do. I stream, and then I sell my work, and like nothing ever would have happened like this for me without, the support of my friends, which I am cannot even tell you how grateful I am for that. Yeah, so
What when you guys find yourselves part of, other people's communities, what goes into influencing the paths that you take, amongst other art streamers, or even other artists just in general, not necessarily restricted to Twitch, but the um the roads that you travel in the art world generally, like what what speaks to you in terms of like grabbing your eye and like encouraging you to want to stick around and kind of like become like involved in other artists' places and communities.
okay, I'll go first.
Yeah.
When I find what sort of makes me find other Twitch artists compelling? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, compelling and in their art, but also, like, oh, I like their art, but I also, want to like hang out here for a while, I guess.
Well, I feel like finding a good streamer, it's like finding a friend, like for me, like that's like a place, that you go and you're like, yes, I could be friends with this person. Like this person is, all the things that make a friend. But I love, like for me, when I see a juicy oil painting, like Arthur Gain, for instance, like he's new. Oh my God, that guy can paint. Like you can't help but like I'll just sit back and like watch him and be like, oh, no. And I can't, he's the nicest person. I can barely talk to him because his skill makes me a bit nervous, to be honest. So those are, some of the things I look for in artists. And then other times you just happen across a person who is, the most amazing, lovely person you ever meet. And then you're there forever, It's
So
nice.
that's something I'm going to jump in here real quick before we give Kirk a chance to answer. Uh, I noticed that there are other artists who come into Pinky's channel, and she has a tendency to be very shy towards them, even though they have been like glowingly positive about Pinky and saying she's wonderful, she's a great painter, she's totally fun to be around, all that stuff, and she still says, "Oh, I don't know if I should talk to them. But they're really good."
Yes.
So I'm wondering, like, how much does imposter syndrome impact both of you, in addition to the previous question? Like, your ability to interact with people that you consider to be very good.
So Kirk, now you have 2 questions that you have to answer.
It was so long ago, I can't remember the first one. I think what draws me to art streamers is usually, obviously, it's just like the initial thumbnail or whatever it is. It's like, oh, like they're drawing something, that's kind of in what you enjoy. Like I like creepy, macabre, kind of, especially inky stuff. But if the values are like super sharp and clean, and it'll draw me in no matter what medium it is, essentially. So, and then once you're in, you kind of check it out and you're just seeing how they interact with their chat and stuff like that. And if they're nice and willing to kind of like chat with people and kind of share what they're going through and stuff like that, then yeah, it's pretty easy for me to just stick around and say hi, throw them on a follow type of thing. And then and it's kind of it's almost like what art is good type of thing. Sometimes it's a tough question because you could see somebody who does amazing artwork, you jump in and you're like, for whatever reason, it may not be your thing, but then you jump into something else and you just jive with whoever's there. And a community is a big part of it too. Like I can think of like one in particular, like they were talking about heavy metal and stuff like that. And I'm a huge metalhead, so that's perfect place for me to hang out for a while and talk about metal and then art and stuff like that. So it's just, as Pinky said, just finding a group of friends that kind of talk and like the same things you do. So, and imposter syndrome is real. It's just one of those things. It's hard to escape, I think. And it's, I think, one of those pieces of advice that is just so hard for any artist to follow is never to compare yourself to anybody else. It's, again, way easier said than done. I have like so many like Topi, Franklin Booth, Bernie Wrights, and all these inker books right in front of my face, which is probably the worst thing for my self-confidence sometimes. Like, I'm never going to be these guys. But then you get people coming in your chat and they just love your work, and it's so hard to kind of figured that out, it almost makes no sense sometimes. And
Mhm.
but yeah, I've been in Pinky's chat before, and I'm like, oh, I love your brushstrokes and the way you're painting and stuff like that. And as any artist downplays it, oh well, no, I don't know, but and then I do the exact same thing when people come into my chat and they're like, oh, I love the way this looks, and I immediately go, well, I wish I could have done this better. I wish I could have done this better. I never just say thank you. It's tough.
Yeah. The number of times that I've been in Pinky's stream and she's just like holding her head and mumbling, "Oh, this is a disaster," and I'm looking at it going, "Show me," and not literally saying this, but like thinking, I'm not where. Where's the problem, Pinky? What's going on? And how does that occur for you, Pinky? That sense of imposter syndrome.
Well, like Mika's snoring under my feet, just so you guys know if there's a strange noise. She's sleeping. Anyways, but I
That's
think it's
Pinky's
that
dog,
we
by the
know.
way, not a.
Oh yes,
Yeah, okay.
not a person snoring under my desk. But we know how the magic trick was made, you know? So it's lost all that wonder because we had to summon it into being. So then at some point, you know, it's like I'm always asking myself, like, can I not see my magic trick, or am I delusional and I think I'm a lot better than I am? It's like all of these conflicting emotions all the time. Is that some days I'll think, you know, that I know nothing, and then the next day I'll think, how could you be so egotistical? Like, what is this? But usually at the same time, somehow I'm not like quite sure how that resolves itself. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's sort of why I like my stream is always like about getting better and not necessarily about like finished projects or kind of something like that, is because honestly I never feel like I'm at the point where I can be making like real work, you know, I guess. Almost I'm trying to work in that direction, but is this our life? Is this what we have to live with, guys? Is this forever?
I hope so. Because if not, I don't know what the fuck else I'm gonna do. I guess I could be an electrician. That I hear that's a good way to pay the bills.
Yeah.
But this idea of imposter syndrome is endlessly fascinating. God, I feel like I want to have like 6 podcasts just about that by itself. And you know, and again, this, you know, coming back to that idea of like life support, you know, and how debilitating imposter syndrome can be and self-doubt can be. And Kirk, you know, you mentioned a while ago, so, you know, self-confidence, you know, and how streaming has helped your confidence, you know, and you know, you guys are really great about balancing that, as far as like, you know, taking praise in and, you know, letting it boost your confidence, not letting it give you a big head, you know, and, you know, helping that kind of drive you forward. You guys, Kirk, you said too that you have, you know, Bernie Wrightson and Booth, you know, on your walls, and that might not be like the greatest idea, but do you think too that like there's sort of like a this weird like juggling act that we have where we're trying to keep up, we're one ball that we're throwing up is the aspiration to be better, and then the other ball that we're throwing up is this like crippling self-doubt. We're sort of like tossing the two from hand to hand. Do you guys like have any advice for people? You know, it's like how, like what are some good like best practices in terms of like state of mind and mindfulness about that balance between wanting to be better, so at some point it's in some way having to know like, well, you're not, you could do it better next time, but then not crushing yourself.
Yeah, I think that's like
magic mushrooms.
Hey.
No, okay, go ahead.
that was going to be my answer. We're good.
Moose.
they're the yeah, it's a tough one, no doubt. And the kind of frame of mind I try to approach, and I talk about it on stream sometimes, is just like, just realize that it's part of a journey, and that you're going to hit plateaus, you're going to hit like walls sometimes, but if you just keep doing it, you're going to get past. It's kind of like the metaphor of like being in a dark tunnel. If you just keep walking, you will eventually see light at some point, type of thing. So you're going to hit these moments of self-doubt and stuff, and just realizing that that's just part of the journey. I'm almost just talking to myself here, reminding myself that even though I may feel like shit some days, and like, what am I even doing? Like, this is pointless, type of thing, the imposter syndrome frame of mind. I just trudge along and keep moving, because you will find that piece eventually, or that, you'll draw that perfect hand. You're like, oh, cool. Yeah, no, this, I was worrying for no reason. It just took a little bit more time, or what have you. So that'd be my piece of advice about just keep going, type of thing, because you will get to the other side of whatever it is that you think is kind of like impeding your progress or your self-confidence, or just, as you said, to juggle it with your improvement as well. So
Yeah, I definitely think that. And even a bad piece of artwork, it's getting you closer, to where you want to be. It's like you always learn something from everything you do, even when it is a disaster. And another thing, though, that I have a friend who is like absolutely trusted to tell me the truth about art, and I do the same. And I think that's been so helpful for me to know that, I won't be lied to about if it's good or bad, or like, what things maybe I should be thinking about. And then I do the same. And I feel like having that person in your life that can be a bit vicious when they need to be, and a bit kind when you also need it. That's important for just your growth as an artist. And so I call my friends that do this my art nemesis. Um, and I so recommend like finding someone willing to be that person for you.
Absolutely. On many Discord channels, there will be like a art share type thing, or art critique. So art share is generally like this is what I did, please don't say anything bad about it type of channels, whereas art critiques are, where can I grow? And it's important to keep those two frames of reference in mind. Is this person looking for praise, or are they looking for praise and validation, or are they looking for in support, or are they looking for motivations or direction of how to get better? There are several Discords that are super active in this regard, and others are less active. And if it's a less active one, then it's more likely to be seen. But if it's a more active one, then it's also, I guess it means that they're all good in some way.
Yeah. That's both are important too. The the sort of like the praise, heaping on the praise, and then also the constructive criticism. I think they're equally important. With the criticism, I think you really have to emphasize the constructive part of that, because definitely some people, either because of trolling or just lack of like tact, or lack of knowing better for whatever reason, are just like not good at giving criticism. And there is definitely a technique to giving good criticism, so you can hopefully like help the other person see their artwork objectively, but also help them feel better, or feel good. Let's say feel good about where they're going with it, and you guys both do that really well. And I think that's, one of the reasons like why people, are sort of like, drawn in, and your communities in general have like this like very like healthy sense of like wanting to help each other grow and improve and feel better about the process. So again, to like anybody that's going to listen to this in the future, in the show notes, everybody's contact information will be there. Go on over and see these guys and fucking get religion. We sort of like talked a little bit about, you know, advice to people that might think about streaming or the downsides therein. You know, do you guys have anything else that you would, you know, want to say to people that would be thinking about streaming or might be shy about it, or, you know, what would you like to say about it?
I would say,
Oh, sorry, thank you.
sorry, I did it. I was going to be nice to Kirk, but
No, he's drinking. Go ahead.
So I would say that a lot of, like, at least it used to be this way when people started streaming. Like, they would invest all this time into overlays and spend a lot of money on equipment and like nice cameras and like nice microphones and all this, and then they would stream for a couple days and then be like, I hate that. I hate everything. It's horrible. And so I think, like, man, piece it together with what you have and then just go in there and see how it's like. And another thing is, when I first started streaming, and people I think often don't know, like, when I first started streaming, like, nobody was in my chat for ages. Like, my best friend would be there every single day, so I'd have one person in my chat, and that was it, you know, and that was all that it needed to be. So sometimes you also see people get disheartened by like nobody being there and like nobody chatting and things like that. And I say, you know, you just got to push through. You just got to keep going, and eventually someone's going to stick. Someone's going to like you, and then that's, you know, it sort of snowballs from there. But these are not things to be alarmed about, you know, at least to begin with. That's what I would say. Maybe.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Just going back to that point about like turn your viewer count off, just kind of ignore that. It's going to be really tough for somebody who's starting out streaming. They're going to want to know how many people are watching and stuff. But I think it's better just to gauge it on like people chatting with you and stuff like that, rather than a particular number. But yeah, just do it if you think it's something you want to do. And it's one of those things that one of the reasons I started streaming too is that I always loved getting like artist sketchbooks. It's like a John Singer Sargent sketchbook or so and so, like anybody's sketchbook, because I like to see the behind the scenes of it. And that's what I find infinitely fascinating about watching art streams, is just seeing like the behind the scenes, the sketching, the erasing, the, you know, frigging and farting around forever to try to find composition. So if that's something you enjoy and you would like to share that with people too, like that process, that's why people want to watch art streamers. Partially is like the process, watching something get built from scratch and then see how it kind of fleshes out over the course of how many ever streams type of thing. And I think if you kind of describe it that way, some people would be like, oh yeah, I'd love to show the way I do thing, be it sculpting or in the arts type of thing, dancing, singing, whatever it might be. And just grab a webcam, do it. Don't worry about as Pinky said, like the fancy equipment and stuff like that. That can come along if it's something that you think like a year or so later, and you know you think you're enjoying the whole thing, then you can maybe start to invest in some of that stuff. But again, it's not needed at all. Just a webcam, and then if you're comfortable with it, one for your face as well, and then just give her.
The only thing that's really required is a good enough internet connection.
Yeah.
Yep.
And a slight tangent off of what Kirk was saying about the sketching process. Lightbox Expo was going on at this moment, and earlier this weekend, one of the talks talked about the desire to see sketches in sketchbooks from other artists. So they'll buy sketchbooks from other artists more so than they'll buy the finished products of them, because they're more interested in the product, the process, than the product. So if you're thinking about making products to sell to other artists, a sketchbook is a good idea.
Yeah, Blooming Zonda had an interesting comment. They said, personally, I stopped streaming because I just felt like I was putting my friends out by them feeling like they need to watch when I honestly had nothing to say a lot of the times. And, by all means, that was the decision that was right for you. And the fundamental thing is to do what is you feel is best. But I would also say, like, there's no like right or wrong way to do it, and I kind of, a lot of what we've already talked about, a lot of the sort of hangups that can be built into streaming, or being part of a community like this, are sort of like internal manifestations, almost they're projections onto the world, rather than what the world is actually really experiencing, like, about us. And to start streaming and start finding that community and all of the things that we've been talking about, all you really need is some way to show what you're drawing, or what you're painting. And I don't think that there should be like any obligation to be like overly talkative, or like Kirk was saying earlier, it's good to engage, sure, like, say hello, hey, what's up, but I think, like, don't put any pressure on yourself to like have to be somebody, or have to do something. And so come back to streaming, Zonda. It's good. You want to do it. Well, we're I think not at the end, but in a point to start winding down, and it would be at times like this, and this isn't to start cutting it off. If anybody has anything else that they like want to add or continue to comment on, please do so. But rating is a thing, and we are streaming this live on Twitch. It will be uploaded on all the places and all the things eventually, but we are streaming live on Twitch. And then rating is something that you do at the end of a stream. What let's talk about, like, it's a little silly, but it's kind of fun. Let's talk about rating. What is it for you guys, and like, how do you decide at the end of one of your streams where you want to go afterwards, and what happens when you raid? Kurt, take it away.
There's two scenarios for me for rating. So essentially, like, rating is like you have X amount of viewers and you decide you want to raid another streamer's stream, essentially. And then essentially what you're doing is you're changing the channel for all the people in your stream to the other streamer's channel, essentially. And then they all go over, and then it's a great way to introduce your community to new artists, or, a cool piece that somebody that you already know is working on. So for me personally, there's two different scenarios. There's usually, if I have the energy, I'll look for new streamers that, have a handful of viewers or something that I think their artwork's pretty cool. I'll just check quickly to see that, they got a mic on or something like that. And then I'll raid. That's actually, unfortunately, that's getting less and less, but I think that's probably the case with most streamers. You kind of cultivate a group of like X amount of streamers that are cool, and you kind of raid them. So, you're at the end of a long 5-6 hour stream, and you're just like, I know this streamer, they're cool, I'm going to send you guys over there. You pop in and say, hey, got to go grab a bite to eat, have a great stream type of thing. And they understand, 100% they do the same thing as well. So yeah, that's usually kind of the two scenarios I go with, type of thing. And sometimes I'll ask the chat, it's like, I'll pop open a bunch of streams. It's like, do you want to see oil painting? Do you want to see sculpting? Or do you want to see watercolor? And then I don't say who the streamers are, and then let the chat kind of choose. So sometimes there's that kind of, involving the chat a little bit in deciding who we get the raid. So
Yeah, the exact same for me. Like, at this point, we know so many streamers, like so many people that are involved in the community and everything like that, you'll look up and you'll see, oh, Nomad streaming, like, let's go visit her. And then, because that's just someone that we know, and maybe fun, I guess. So, and then every once in a while, someone will say, like, Moose is so good. Thank you, Moose. God bless you. Sometimes Moose will see that I'm like desperate, like the dogs are barking, things are happening, I need to get away. And Moose will like give me a whisper real quick and be like, go here. It's like, yes, okay, that's it. That's what we'll do. So thank you, Moose, by the way.
Absolutely. Generally, I pick names from people that are in your channel. That's one way that I do that. So if it's somebody that you have a connection with, that's strong. But also if it's a friend of a friend. So actually, how I found all of you guys was through Sam Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
So Sam Peterson rated Pinky, and Sam Peterson also rated Steve Sketches, and Steve Sketches rated both Kirk Shannon and Jebby Dorr. So it's this link thing. So when somebody who rates another person, I follow that person and I keep note of it. So, and then I watch them for a while longer, make sure they're not like creepy or something. It's not one off. Try to make sure that they're a good person and somebody you want to support. And then I'll keep note of that and forward it on to other people when I'm suggesting places to rate.
Yeah, it's almost like an interlinking. We're building the chain, and it's unfortunate that the word networking has become like this dirty 4-letter. It's hard to extract that word from all of the marketing jargon that's gotten tied up in it, because it has value as like a way to describe what's happening as well. It's like you're making a network. And so I don't know, I would invite anybody listening, or you guys, if you have something off the cuff to say about it, like let's try and like revive this idea of networking, maybe with a new word or a new way to describe it or think about it. I don't know. The community is nice. It seems like community seems like kind of immune from that taint. But I don't know.
Let's take a note from Bob Ross. Making a friend.
Make a friend.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we do wrap it up entirely, what do you guys have any specific thoughts on that? As far as like, like the numbers aren't important, but we also want to think about exposure, and finding new places to show our artwork, and putting our artwork in front of eyeballs, whether it's professionally or for that feedback or whatever, like, so how do you guys approach that in a way that keeps it healthy for you? That idea of like networking without it becoming this like a fucking shuffle and jive kind of thing, or like I'm networking, I'm rubbing elbows. You don't want that, but you want to still be, building connections. Go ahead, Kirk.
You want me to talk?
Anybody.
Honestly, I'm very bad. Like I'm not good at really doing anything like that. Moose has tried to help me with social media before, and yeah, I kind of just don't, and I think this is partly imposter syndrome. A lot of times I don't want other people to see the work that I'm doing because yeah, which is crazy because I'm streaming it, right? Like I know it doesn't make sense, but that's like if you want the truth of it, that's it, There you go.
Yeah, and for me, it's somewhat similar. Like I'll go into other streamers' chats and I'll engage them, and they'll be like, "Oh man, that's really cool artwork. I really dig the technique you're doing and stuff like that." And usually, and I've talked about it in my stream before. Like I'm absolutely horrible at self promotion too. Case in point, first time I ever sold artwork, I was 38 years old. So it's took me this many years to actually become mildly comfortable with self-promotion. So again, as Pinky says, the same issue. I think we all just need to be a little bit more, more confident, but a little bit more. I remember reading an article on Muddy Colors from art directors talking about like they wish artists were a bit more bold in like reaching out to them directly and sending them emails like for a book publisher or what have you. They're so surprised when they hear these people like artists that like they don't reach out because they don't think their artwork's good enough. So and they're just it's almost like cold calling. It's very you're putting your heart on your sleeve type of thing. But if you miss 100% of the shots you never take type of thing. So
Right.
it's really difficult, I think, for a good amount of artists to do that type of thing. So again, to go back to the Twitch thing, like if I go into an artist stream and then unless they kind of broach the subject of asking me like, hey, do you do art? Then I'll start talking about my art type of thing. But otherwise, I usually don't push that, like, hey, you do really cool art. I do too. And just kind of wait with bated breath that they might ask for an Instagram link or something like that. So I try to approach it very organically.
Yeah.
And again, putting the emphasis on just how much I like their work type of thing. And sometimes they'll dig back and kind of, ask, hey, what do you do type of thing. And then that's kind of the organic growth of that, of becoming like finding a peer or friend type of thing in a Twitch stream or so.
Yeah. And it might seem a little silly, like sometimes I feel a little self-conscious about it when I like what Ali just said in the chat. Being sincere is a big thing. And yes, it is, but the sort of the self-consciousness for me comes in when it's like I have to like actively think about being sincere. It almost like puts you in this weird dissonant state where it's like I'm being sincere, but I'm thinking about being sincere. So doesn't that in effect make it insincere? But and you're like in this weird place. So it's kind of just like, don't worry about it too much. Just like fucking hang out, be yourself. Like, even if that's being, what you consider weird and feeling awkward, and it's fine. Fucking, we're gonna love you. I hate to take the last word, but if anybody else like wants to throw anything, any final thoughts, anything else that you guys want to say? Moose is chomping at the bit.
So in regard to the not thinking you want to show your work is just not good enough, or similar things, it's not just about networking, right? It's about giving people something that you think that they will enjoy. Even if you don't think they'll enjoy it, it's because it's not as good as what other people are making. It's like you're making cookies. Maybe they're not the best cookies in the world, but people are like, hey, these are cookies. I like cookies. And more cookies. So provide them the cookies. Art.
Yeah, don't be selfish with your cookies. Jerks.
They might be oatmeal raisin, but some people like oatmeal raisin. Right.
That's actually a good point. There's a cookie out there for everybody. Well, shit, you guys. Thank you so much. All your guys' information, where to find you guys, both on Twitch and social media and websites and all that, will all be in the show notes afterwards. Everybody watching, I want to thank you guys all too. Chat is a huge part of this. We had toyed with a way to try and involve chat actually on the screen. It was funky every which way we tried it. So I feel this like weird need to like apologize for you guys just like contributing awesome, valuable information and no one ever getting to see it. But thank you so much. And if it's all right, I think that we can cap it there. Thank you guys so much.
Next week, real quick.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for reminding me. Talk about next week, Moose.
Sure. Let me pull up the stream schedule.
That was you see what I did there? That was a little trick that I pulled on you.
So next week we have some tabletop RPG publishers, the bestsellers. They're going to talk about best practices to getting your book published and having it sell well.
Yeah. So not and without even limiting that to tabletop RPGs, that'll be, I think I'll have a lot of valuable information for anybody that has like any kind of project that they're working on and are investing in and, hoping to put it in front of eyeballs and things like that. All right, cool. Thank you guys. Everybody that is in stream or is watching in the chat, I'm going to end it, but if you want to keep hanging out, we are going to go raid somebody. So let's say goodbye to everybody. Kirk, Pinky, Moose, thank you guys so much. We'll see you soon.